I don't know for sure. He was my firstborn, and ever since then, I've been accused of being too lenient.
Every day is a winding road. No day is like the other.
10 famous faces share a hidden battle. Kids diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Exclusive facts, rare photos, and untold scandals await. The last entry will shock you.
Not knowing if I can get help from the government, not knowing that, you know...
Let's start with number 10, Leah Wright. The champagne sparkles of a London gala melt into the sterile, humming stillness of a children's hospital room. How can one woman inhabit such different worlds without anyone noticing? Leah Wright, known for her role in The Only Way is Essex, has always been a magnet for attention. Her bold personality, headline-making moments, and unapologetic style made her a fixture of British reality TV. Viewers thought they saw it all: her fashion, her friends, her milestones. But behind the edited episodes and paparazzi shots was a chapter she never shared for more than half a decade. Her son Christopher was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was just 3 or 4 years old. The diagnosis was life-altering, a plunge into the unrelenting routines of carb counting, insulin injections, and round-the-clock vigilance. In the UK, roughly 29,000 children under 19 live with T1D.
Big fight. It was a long fight, emotional fight, and it took a lot of strength.
A figure that hides countless midnight alarms and school day disruptions. For Leah, it meant mastering blood glucose checks before breakfast and preparing emergency glucagon kits in her handbags alongside lipstick and sunglasses. She finally revealed Christopher's condition through an unflinching Instagram post, a hospital scene, his small hand wrapped in medical tape, IV lines coiling into machines. Her captions celebrated his bravery and hinted at the quiet endurance of their journey. It reframed her public image, showing a side that reality TV never captured: protective, determined, quietly generous. Privately, she has supported children's diabetes charities and even mentored other parents of newly diagnosed kids in the public eye. Few know she has kept a detailed personal journal of Christopher's milestones and challenges, shared only with close friends, a living record of resilience. Her story leaves one lingering thought: how many parents are carrying similar hidden battles without the world ever knowing?
I got to thinking about people who are jumping and how scary it is and whether, like, what goes into a decision. Yeah.
Moving on to number 9, Hoda Kotb. The bright morning lights of Studio 1A beam across millions of TV screens. But away from the cameras, one of America's most familiar smiles spends her nights in quiet, vigilant watch over her daughter. Hoda Kotb, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show since 2018 and a household name for over 2 decades, faced a life shift in early 2023. Her youngest daughter, Hope Catherine, was hospitalized for a separate health issue. It was there, amid lab tests and concerned specialists, that the diagnosis came: type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes in toddlers is rare. Studies show only about 1 in 400 children in the US have it, and onset before age 5 can be particularly demanding. Young children's blood sugar levels fluctuate unpredictably due to growth, rapid metabolism, and spontaneous activity. Hoda, used to preparing for interviews with heads of state, now found herself calculating carbohydrate ratios and basal insulin rates before dawn.
I try not to put my worry on her. Like, I kept thinking, don't put your worry on her.
Spoke openly in select interviews about the adjustments, installing continuous glucose monitoring (CGM) systems linked to her phone, reshaping her work schedule to be present for every endocrinology appointment, and learning the subtle signs of hypoglycemia in a toddler's behavior. Behind the scenes at NBC, colleagues have noted her keeping a discreet supply kit: juice boxes, glucose tablets, spare sensors, ready for emergencies. Her situation resonates with thousands of American families navigating the same diagnosis, many without her resources. The CDC estimates nearly 244,000 people under age 20 in the U.S. live with type 1 diabetes, and the cost of supplies alone can reach $500 to $1,000 monthly without insurance. Hoda has quietly contributed to pediatric diabetes organizations, avoiding fanfare to protect her daughter's privacy. Few viewers realize that while she delivers the day's top stories at 8 a.m., she may have been awake since 3 a.m., soothing a child through low blood sugar episodes. That juxtaposition, public poise, private endurance, makes her story one of the most quietly powerful on this list.
The crazy thing is that he didn't show any symptoms of perhaps having anything wrong with him.
Let's move on to number 8, John Legend and Chrissy Teigen. A sold-out arena chance for an encore. Backstage, beneath the glow of LED screens and the rustle of stagehands, a young boy sits with his mother, a glucose meter in hand, the music still vibrating in the walls. In 2024, John Legend, EGOT winner, activist, and global touring artist, and model-turned-cookbook author Chrissy Teigen revealed that their son Miles, just 6 years old, had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. The news arrived after weeks of subtle symptoms: frequent thirst, sudden night wakings, uncharacteristic fatigue. A pediatric checkup turned into urgent blood work, which confirmed a blood glucose level far above the normal 70 to 140 milligrams per deciliter range. The family's life changed that day.
He was kind of like really dehydrated from it and really just not feeling well. And we kind of noticed.
Globally, the International Diabetes Federation estimates over 1.2 million children and adolescents live with type 1 diabetes. For touring parents, the logistics become exponentially harder. Every hotel room becomes a mini medical station. Every time zone shift demands careful recalibration of insulin dosing. For John and Chrissy, whose schedules span continents, that meant flying with backup insulin kept at controlled temperatures, carb counting on catering menus, and fighting pediatric endocrinologists abroad, sometimes in countries with limited T1D infrastructure. Rather than retreat from public life, they leaned into learning. In summer 2024, the family attended a diabetes family camp, a rare environment where every child wore a CGM and insulin pumps were as common as baseball caps. Chrissy later shared how the camp normalized Miles' experience, surrounding him with peers facing the same daily challenges. What most don't know, the couple has privately funded multiple full scholarships for other children to attend similar camps, choosing not to publicize their donations. Within the type 1 diabetes parent community, word travels fast. John and Chrissy's quiet generosity is no secret among those who have benefited. It raises an unspoken question: how do parents balance global fame with the fragile, precise routines of a child's health? The answer, in their case, is found in the quiet spaces between encores.
I dream of a cure for my son who has type 1 diabetes.
Moving on to number 7, Ron Darling. The crack of a fastball echoes in Shea Stadium, 1986. A decade later, that same precision and discipline would be repurposed, not for striking out batters, but for safeguarding his son's blood sugar levels through the night. Ron Darling, World Series winning pitcher for the New York Mets and now a respected baseball broadcaster, faced a different opponent in 2000 when his son Jordan, at just 11 years old, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. The diagnosis came after weeks of unexplained fatigue, rapid weight loss, and intense thirst. Classic signs that too often go unnoticed until dangerously high glucose levels appear. According to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, JDRF, the average child with T1D undergoes more than 3,000 blood glucose checks a year and hundreds of insulin adjustments. For Darling, it meant mastering carb ratios and insulin sensitivity factors with the same methodical focus he once used to study rival hitters. He founded the Ron Darling Foundation to raise funds for diabetes research and patient support, channeling his sports network into annual charity events. By 2004, those events had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, contributing to both equipment funding for underprivileged families and research into artificial pancreas systems, technology now reducing hypoglycemia risk by up to 40% in trials.
I truly have a reason to believe that it will happen in his lifetime.
Baseball road trips once meant travel bags full of gloves and cleats. Now, his carry-ons included glucagon kits, infusion set replacements, and enough low snacks to last multiple games. A lesser-known fact, Darling insisted on doing Jordan's nighttime glucose checks himself whenever possible, even if it meant calling from across the country to wake a caregiver for an immediate reading. His advocacy extends beyond fundraising. He's testified alongside other sports figures before state legislators, arguing for mandatory T1D training in schools and youth sports programs. It's a reminder that championship grit can translate from the mound to the home. Yet, his story opens the door to another athlete's tale, one whose child's diagnosis came at an even younger, more vulnerable age, and in the midst of a relentless professional season.
Hello everybody, I'm Jonathan Davis from the band Korn. I want to talk a little bit about the battle I'm having with my son's type 1 diabetes.
Let's move on to number 6, Jonathan Davis. The crowd roars, strobe lights stutter, and the bass line pounds through the floor. But away from the main stage, in a quiet dressing room, a rock frontman hunches over a glucometer, waiting for a digital number that will dictate his son's next move. Jonathan Davis, lead singer of Korn, a band that defined the nu metal era with over 40 million albums sold, faced one of his most personal crises in 2010 when his young son Zeppelin was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. The diagnosis came abruptly during a touring period, forcing Davis to shuttle between hospital wards and sold-out shows. Type 1 diabetes in children requires constant attention. Blood sugar can swing dangerously within minutes. At the time, continuous glucose monitors were far less advanced than today's models, so the Davis family relied on finger prick checks every few hours, even during the night. A standard music tour schedule with meals at odd hours and erratic sleep was the worst possible environment for blood sugar stability. Davis didn't keep the experience private. In 2015, he wrote "So Unfair," a song capturing the helplessness he felt watching his son struggle. All proceeds went to JDRF, contributing to a fundraising surge that, according to JDRF's own records, helped push awareness campaigns into global music circles for the first time.
I got home from tour and we took him to the hospital and told him, what was going on.
On tour, Korn's backstage riders began to change. Alongside bottled water and performance snacks, Davis added juice boxes, glucose tablets, and insulin storage coolers. Stage crews learned to recognize the signs of hypoglycemia, ready to intervene mid-performance if needed. That blend of rock star chaos and medical readiness became the band's unspoken protocol. A detail few outside his circle know, Davis once delayed a live show in Berlin by 45 minutes, not for sound issues, but because Zeppelin's glucose levels had crashed and he refused to step on stage until he was stable. This kind of paternal vigilance links him to another sports legend coming up, someone who also had to rewire their life around a child's diagnosis, this time when the child was barely old enough to walk.
I'd say that it has been somewhat easier because he has been home. The fact that, he's at very high risk.
Moving on to number 5, Ray Allen. The final buzzer sounds, the arena erupts, and cameras flash around an NBA legend. Yet, behind the polished post-game interviews, Ray Allen's mind is on numbers of a different kind: blood glucose readings, insulin units, carbohydrate counts. Ray Allen, a 2-time NBA champion and 10-time All-Star, saw his life pivot sharply in 2008 when his son Walker, just 17 months old, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. At that age, most children are just learning to talk. Walker's vocabulary had to include words like shot and sugar. The American Diabetes Association notes that toddlers with T1D require near constant supervision because they can't yet verbalize symptoms of hypo or hyperglycemia. A single missed sign can lead to life-threatening diabetic ketoacidosis in hours. For Alan and his wife Shannon, that meant monitoring their son's levels as often as 10 to 12 times a day, even during the chaos of away games.
We want more kids to have access to this technology.
Alan quickly became an advocate, partnering with Abbott's Freestyle Libre system and speaking publicly about the technological advances in CGMs that allowed him to see Walker's readings in real time, even during playoff travel. He has described waking up in hotel rooms across the country, checking his phone to see if Walker's glucose was steady back home. Travel posted its own challenges. The family learned to carry multiple insulin vials in temperature-controlled packs, backup glucose meters, and snacks with precise carb counts. On some trips, Alan would bring an entire extra suitcase dedicated solely to his son's medical supplies, equipment valued at over $3,000, critical for avoiding disruption if flights were delayed or luggage lost. What few fans realize is that Alan, known for his precision on the court, applied that same discipline to his son's care. He created laminated game plans for babysitters and school staff, outlining exact responses to every glucose range. And now, from the polished hardwood of the NBA to the polished stages of Broadway, we turn to an actress whose son's diagnosis came at a time when the entire world was already holding its breath.
We used to be there.
On to number 4, Donna Lynn Champlin. Broadway's velvet curtains part, the orchestra swells, and the spotlight hits center stage. Yet, for Donna Lynn Champlin, the most important performance of her life happens offstage, timed with insulin doses, not overtures. Known for her role as Paula Proctor on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and her acclaimed Broadway credits, Champlin faced an unexpected twist in 2020. Her son, Charlie, just 8 years old, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
My name is Charles Benjamin Arrow, and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in October 1st.
In a time when hospitals felt like sealed fortresses, the diagnosis carried extra weight. Frequent visits were essential, yet riskier than ever. Type 1 diabetes in children during a pandemic brought unique challenges. A 2021 study in diabetes care reported that children diagnosed during COVID lockdowns often presented with more severe diabetic ketoacidosis due to delayed medical attention. For the Champlin family, that meant heightened vigilance from day one. Champlin adapted with meticulous organization. Every bag, purse, rehearsal tote, or theater dressing room satchel carried glucose tabs, spare CGM sensors, insulin pens, and a backup meter. She color-coded supplies for speed, red for emergency treatments, blue for daily use, yellow for replacements. Beyond managing Charlie's health, she turned her artistic energy into advocacy. Through personalized video messages, virtual concerts, and cameo appearances, she raised thousands for JDRF. But she kept some contributions private, covering the cost of CGM devices for families in her network who had lost insurance during the pandemic. A rarely shared anecdote: during a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend reunion event, Champlin quietly left mid-panel to handle a Dexcom alarm, returning minutes later without missing her cue, audience none the wiser. Her life became a duet, one voice projecting confidence to the crowd, the other softly counting carbs backstage. From Broadway stages to sitcom sets, we now pivot to the warm glow of a classic TV living room and a father whose off-screen role as advocate may be his most enduring legacy.
Yeah.
There must be some adjustment you make knowing that the kid is going through a lot anyway.
Coming in at number 3, Alan Thicke. The laugh track fades, the sitcom set goes dark, and the man known to millions as America's TV dad steps into a much quieter role, holding his 4-year-old son's hand in a hospital room. Alan Thicke, beloved for Growing Pains in the 1980s and 90s, faced a real-life script rewrite in the early 90s when his son Brennan was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. At that time, public awareness of T1D was lower and treatment technology far less advanced. There were no smartphone-linked continuous glucose monitors, no sleek insulin pumps. Management meant multiple daily injections and meticulous manual logging of every blood glucose reading, often in handwritten notebooks. Thicke didn't just adapt, he became an active force in diabetes advocacy. He helped establish JDRF chapters in Ottawa and Calgary, bringing the foundation's reach into more Canadian communities. His efforts contributed to fundraising events that, according to JDRF Canada records, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in the 1990s, long before celebrity charity became a common media headline.
By the way, you walked into Ain't No Hap for That you co-wrote with your son Robin, right?
Yes, I'm very flattered.
One of his most lasting contributions was the creation of the Alan Thicke Center for Juvenile Diabetes Research in Vancouver. The center became a hub for clinical trials, including early work on islet cell transplantation, a procedure aiming to restore insulin production in T1D patients. Away from cameras, Thicke was hands-on. Brennan recalls in interviews how his father personally calculated carb ratios for homemade meals, sometimes calling endocrinologists directly to confirm his math. Alan insisted that Brennan's condition never become an excuse for limiting his life, encouraging him to play hockey, travel, and live fully while quietly managing the invisible labor of T1D care. What few know, Thicke often covered the cost of diabetes supplies for families he met through hospital visits, sometimes slipping cash to parents in waiting rooms without leaving his name. From the gentle authority of a sitcom father, we turn now to an Oscar-winning powerhouse couple who brought their advocacy from red carpets straight to the halls of Congress.
There are 5 million people with diabetes who don't even know they have it. We could be one of them. Or two.
At number 2, Kevin Kline and Phoebe Cates. Kevin Kline, the Academy Award-winning star of A Fish Called Wanda, and Phoebe Cates, remembered for Fast Times at Ridgemont High, have shared over 3 decades of marriage, unusual longevity in Hollywood. But one of their most enduring partnerships has been as parents navigating their son Owen's type 1 diabetes. Owen was diagnosed in childhood, a period when insulin pump technology was just starting to become more widely accessible in the US. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, fewer than 15% of American children with type 1 diabetes used pumps. The majority still relied on multiple daily injections and fingerstick checks, sometimes 8 to 10 times a day. Kline didn't just learn the medical routines, he became a vocal advocate. He testified before the U.S. Congress in support of increased NIH funding for diabetes research, referencing both Owen's daily challenges and the broader 244,000 American children living with the disease. His speeches often cited CDC data showing a 21% increase in T1D incidence among youth between 2001 and 2009, framing it as a growing public health priority.
You see no Botox. These are my lips, what's left of them.
Behind the scenes, the couple helped fund leadership programs at diabetes summer camps, focusing on giving teens with T1D the confidence to manage their condition independently. These camps, supported partly through their private donations, provide 24/7 medical supervision, carb counting education, and peer connection, services that can cost upwards of $1,500 per week for uninsured families. A little-known detail, during one Broadway run, Kevin would leave rehearsals to meet Owen at school for lunchtime glucose checks, then return to set as if nothing had happened. That quiet balancing act became routine for years. From the quiet corridors of congressional offices, we now step into the global stage lights of an R&B icon, one whose own child's diagnosis transformed him into one of the most visible advocates for type 1 diabetes today.
When I get an alert that my child's blood sugar is high or low, it just stops me.
Finally, at number 1, Usher. The stage is lit in deep purple. Thousands of fans swaying to a Grammy-winning voice. Yet, somewhere in the wings, Usher's focus isn't on the next note. It's on the numbers flashing from his son's glucose monitor. In 2014, Usher Raymond V, nicknamed Cinco, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 6. The diagnosis came after classic but easily overlooked signs: sudden weight loss, constant thirst, and frequent urination. Tests revealed blood glucose levels more than triple the healthy range, and immediate insulin therapy was required. For Usher, it marked the beginning of a dual career, one as a global music icon and another as a vigilant, hands-on diabetes parent. He became a high-profile supporter of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, JDRF, appearing in their T1D Looks Like Me campaign, which in 2016 reached over 100 million social media impressions in a single month.
This is why I'm so serious about how important being screened for type 1 diabetes is.
He's attended fundraising galas, participated in awareness walks, and publicly championed advances in artificial pancreas systems, now shown to reduce time spent at dangerous glucose ranges by up to 27%. Behind the spotlight, Usher's approach is exacting. Tour itineraries are coordinated with endocrinology appointments. Every dressing room and tour bus is stocked with emergency glucose, ketone strips, and spare infusion sets. Crew members receive basic T1D training, knowing how to respond to hypoglycemia mid-show. He's also worked privately, funding scholarships for children to attend specialized diabetes camps, which not only teach medical management, but also build resilience. Camp directors have credited his contributions with covering costs for families from multiple states. Few fans realize that Usher insists on being present for every major medical review, even if it means red-eye flights between concerts. That commitment, hidden behind his public persona, has made him a trusted figure in the type 1 diabetes community. And with that, we close this circle of resilience, advocacy, and unspoken battles. A network of famous parents linked not by the industry they work in, but by the vigilance they live every single day. If you love these hidden Hollywood truths, dive into our other videos. Subscribe, like, and join the insiders, because the next secrets are even wilder than today's countdown.